Welcome back to Management Unfiltered. It's just me today, Kirk Teachout. Zach's off traveling out of country, so while he's away, I get to take the reins. No one here to rein me in, no one here to make me laugh, but it's okay. Because that means you're about to get a full on deep dive into my favorite topic, the schedule. Zach might regret letting me have this much airtime, but hey, that's what you get when you leave me in charge. And if you're a practice owner or office manager, this episode is for you. I would love for you to listen in, but when you have a chance, come back with a pen and paper to write a lot of this down to dial in your own goals because we're going to start at the top with your annual goal, reverse engineer it all the way down to the day, and then I'll show you exactly how to build and protect a schedule that consistently hits those numbers. So we're going to get super tactical. It's not about doing this once in a while, it's about doing it consistently. So let's get into it. So, part number one is reverse engineering your goal. Let's start simple. Say your goal is $1 million in collections for the year. If you take insurance, you've got to account for write offs. So let's say your write-off rate is about 30%. I think ours averages around 25 to 30 right now. But that means instead of just aiming for $1 million in collections, you actually need to produce, you got it, around 1.3 million in order to collect that million. Now, let's talk time. You want to take 6 weeks off during the year. Do some easy math. That leaves you with 46 working weeks. If you're working 4 days a week, that's about 184 days of work. Now, take that 1.3 million, divide it by 184, and you get a daily production goal of about $7,000, 7,065 a day, I believe. Here's where your hygiene comes in, though. Each hygienist should be producing around $1,500 a day. If you have two hygienists, that's $3,000 already accounted for. Makes your life a lot easier, doc, but you still need to produce. That means you as a doctor only need to produce, though, the difference, about $4,065 a day. That's how you make your daily number realistic. It's very simple. You just kind of reverse engineer those goals and get to where it's very clear. And clarity is kindness, remember. The hygiene department carries a consistent baseline, and you, as the doctor, fill the rest. But here's the thing, if you don't know your daily number, you're not running the business. You're just hoping the math works out and just saying, hey, I want to collect $1 million this year. I want to collect $5 million this year is just a pipe dream. That's just hoping you get somewhere. But if we don't set up the systems properly, you're never going to hit that. You may accidentally, but it's just not consistent. But the second part is building the columns. Now, how do you actually hit that number? The answer is structure. Every provider in my playbook needs 3 columns on the schedule. It doesn't matter if you've got 2 operatories or 3, columns are what matter. Column 1 is your big procedures, or your rocks, as a lot of people call them. Those are your crowns, your bridges, your implants, your implant crowns. And then column number 2 are your smaller procedures that fill in the gaps. Okay. These are your fillings and extractions. But column number 3, even if you don't have an op for it, is assistant driven procedures. So these are your crown seats, your emergencies, your aligner checks and adjustments and other things that the assistant does the bulk of the work. So you just come in and confirm whatever, and then the patient leaves. And if you build your day this way, your schedule becomes predictable. It balances production, it keeps you as the doc moving, and makes sure that no one's sitting around waiting. Your ops don't matter, your columns do. But then that leads me to part number 3. How do we keep things full? The 48-hour rule is one way we do it. So here's where most practices lose money. They don't protect their schedule. You have to dictate your schedule, or really your front office needs to protect your schedule and dictate it. But the 48-hour rule says this: if there's an opening in the next 2 days, It must be filled, not try, not hope. It must be filled. And you don't just plug in filler. I don't like that because no one likes a super non productive day with a bunch of crown seats or adjustments. You go by priority. You go by high value restorative or pros, crowns, bridges, implants. You go by patients with diagnosed treatment who haven't scheduled. And then you look at overdue recalls such as SRPs, perio maintenance, and prophies. And then we look at the short call list. People who said, hey, call me if anything opens up. But here's the rule of thumb. If the procedure doesn't move production, don't plug it in. Okay. And when you're making those calls, it's very simple. I'm going to give you this script that we use. You don't ask if they want to schedule, you give them options. Hey, Miss Jane, Dr. Smith was concerned about that crown you spoke about last time on the upper right. Your part's only $427, and I have an opening on Wednesday at 10 a.m. or 1 p.m. Which one works best for you? See, the scripts, or this script anyway, gets you to the point and it gets the patient thinking, oh, the doctor was thinking about me. That's really cool. And it gets people on the schedule. Even if it's not in those two time slots, it gets them thinking about other things and where they should sit on the schedule. So even if you call 10 patients that need a crown and you don't get them into those two spots, maybe 3 or 4 of those get on the schedule either way. So it's a win. But the 48-hour rule is what keeps your schedule from crumbling and it keeps it full. But then it leads to the 24-hour rule. Okay. Let's talk about this 24-hour rule because every appointment has to be confirmed the day before, minimum. Okay. So we are calling people at least the day before. We've already called them 48 hours before. We have confirmations go out. But 24 hours before, it's got to be confirmed or we double book it. So if it's not confirmed by noon, you double book this appointment or you reschedule it. Here's the script. Okay. Hey, Miss Jane, we've been trying to get a hold of you for your appointment tomorrow. Unfortunately, if we do not hear back by noon today, we'll need to reschedule this appointment. Look, this isn't harsh, it's necessary, and it protects your production goals and keeps you from being at the mercy of no shows. If you want your no show and last minute cancellation rate to go down, I suggest implementing this 24-hour rule. We do it all the time and it keeps our schedule full and healthy. But then it leads to the morning huddle. I'm not going to go over, a deep dive in the morning huddle, but this is your war room. The last piece of the puzzle is this morning huddle. Now, I'm not talking about a pep rally, like I said. This is where we figure out how to maximize the schedule because we know that no schedule is the same at the end of the day as it is at the beginning of the day. But here's how it works. And you may not like me for this, but my whole team gets and shows up 15 minutes early before the morning huddle. Now, there's a strategy to this. They get prepared for the meeting. How many of you have morning huddles that no one shows up prepared for? I know because we used to as well. But since we've started implementing this 15-minute rule in the last several years, it's been huge. See, this is what happens. The front desk checks voicemails and text messages from the night before, clears up the schedule from any last minute cancellations and no shows that may be potentially coming in, and looks for patients with balances. That's what they do. Hygiene looks at their patients, who's due for x-rays, who has pending treatment, so that way they can let the doctor know kind of what's going on and what they're going into. But here's the important one. Doctors and assistants go through every patient and ask 3 questions. What are we doing today? How can we maximize it? For example, maybe Miss Jane has been considering a partial but hasn't pulled the trigger yet. Can we add that? And so the doctor or the assistant will let the front know at the morning huddle, hey, can you call Miss Jane to see if she'd be okay with us adding on that partial? And a lot of times it is. So we set up for it. But can we add something to maximize the appointment on the doctor's side? And then the third one is what's next? Is the next step treatment or hygiene? So we always have this information moving forward. And when you do this every morning, your team is prepared. Your day runs smoother and you actually maximize the schedule you work so hard to build. So for instance, if $3,000 fell off the schedule because maybe a couple big procedures fell off or a few hygiene appointments fell off. We have now the opportunity to add back in that $3,000 or more. And we know it at the beginning of the day versus hoping that something same day treatment wise comes through hygiene. That's not ideal. What's ideal is maximizing it in the morning huddle, in the war room, as I like to call it, before we get to the first patient. And it makes things a lot more productive as well as a lot more predictable. So that's today's deep dive. We started with our annual goal. We broke it all the way down to a daily number, factored in hygiene production, built a 3-column schedule, and talked about the 48-hour rule, the 24-hour rule, and how to get prepared for the morning huddle that ties it all together. Thanks for listening to this solo episode of Management Unfiltered. If you've got value from today's episode, hit me up on Instagram at Kirk Teachout. I'd love to answer any questions that you have. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, leave a 5-star review, do all the things, subscribe to the YouTubes, and drop a comment with the topics you want us to cover next. Your feedback helps us keep this podcast bold, tactical, and unfiltered as usual. Until next time, don't let the schedule run you. You run your schedule. See you next time.